Good evening, you're watching News Mongolian World. I'm your host, Ulaanbaatar. And for top stories, female foreign ministers meeting will be held in Ulaanbaatar this week. Consultation Meeting Mongolia against torture held, and Deeltei Mongol National Costume Festival to be held on July 9th. And for the news, stay tuned. At the initiative of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia, the female foreign ministers meeting will be held for the first time in Ulaanbaatar city on July 29th and 30th. The meeting will focus on ensuring the inclusion of gender equality and human rights principles, including the rights of girls and women in foreign policy. The meeting seeks to contribute to creating a stable society with human rights, freedom and equal opportunity, while supporting women's participation at the decision-making level. France and Germany are supporting the meeting's organization. It is expected to host representatives from 15 countries, the United Nations and other international organizations. During the meeting, a comprehensive discussion will be held on women's participation in combating climate change, ensuring food security and strengthening international peace and security. The outcome of this discussion will be issuing the Ulaanbaatar Declaration. This initiative put forward by Mongolia prioritizes ensuring gender equality and protecting and guaranteeing human rights. Mongolia pursues a partnership and cooperation approach to domestic and foreign policy that values peace, considering the complicated global geopolitical issues facing international relations. A consultation meeting on the theme Mongolia against torture was held in Ulaanbaatar city on the occasion of the United Nations International Day in support of victims of torture. The meeting was organized by the Department for the Prevention of Torture at the National Human Rights Commission.
In the past, Mongolia has affirmed the idea that everyone should be free from torture and joined the United Nations Convention against torture and other cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment by incorporating its principles and idea into the Constitution of Mongolia. However, human rights organizations and human rights experts believe that certain laws could be improved.
During today's discussion, it was highlighted that the criminal law effectively addresses the prevention and protection against crimes of torture and discrimination. However, there was recognition that other important issues are relatively weakly protected by existing laws. We agreed that in the future we should carefully regulate these issues and strengthen the protection of these rights.
However, the State Greatorol, or Mongolia's parliament, has instructed the government to examine the possibility of establishing an independent agency responsible for investigating crimes involving torture and degrading treatment and to submit recommendations. According to the management of the 461st Penal Institution, there has been a decrease in the number of petitions and complaints filed by prisoners and defendants in 2023. However, some citizens assert that in the past, cases have experienced prolonged delays, leading to them becoming victims of torture and inhuman treatments.
In the past, one of the most common complaints raised by prisoners was their complaints were not being properly forwarded to the relevant authorities, resulting in a significant number of complaints stemming from this issue. In 2023, we have successfully resolved this issue, addressing it in its entirety. Furthermore, during the first 6 months of 2023, there have been no reported complaints from victims regarding the suppression or pressure by officials or other law enforcement agencies. It is uncertain whether the lack of knowledge and education contributes to the challenges in resolving cases or if deliberate efforts are made to impede the process. For example, even if certain cases may not meet the legal criteria for being considered crimes, lengthy investigations, sometimes lasting for over 15 years, can inflict significant emotional, temporal, financial, health-related, and dignity-related consequences on individuals.
The focus should be on prevention rather than addressing the aftermath of torture crimes. Efforts should be directed towards effectively organizing preventive measures to ensure that individuals are not harmed in the first place. Additionally, it was emphasized during the consultation meeting that improving the legal knowledge of citizens and fostering ethical conduct and education among law enforcement officers are vital aspects that require attention. By enhancing legal understanding and fostering ethics, a more just and rights-respecting society can be created.
Now let's take a look at Mongolia's current affairs. On the occasion of the 2232nd anniversary of the first foundation of Mongolian statehood, the 817th anniversary of the Great Mongol Empire, and the 102nd anniversary of the People's Revolution of Mongolia, the Deeltei Mongol National Costume Festival will be organized at Sukhwata Square at 11 a.m. on July 9th. The event organizers are the Ulaanbaatar Governor's Office, the Ulaanbaatar Tourism Department, the Mongolian Tourism Association, and Mongol Costumes LLC. Ethnic Mongolians from other parts of the world, including the Buryat, Tuva, Kalmyk ethnic groups, and Inner Mongolians from Khokhnur, will attend this year's festival and present their ethnic clothing. The festival includes a parade of national costumes, a performance showcasing 13th century warriors, a Tamil religious dance performance, and a competition for the best dressed participants. Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Here's the international news from our partner agencies. President Vladimir Putin has been very seriously weakened by the uprising by Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, according to a Russia analyst. Russia analyst Misha Glenny said Putin's tough talk following the uprising and subsequently deal with Prigozhin was an attempt to show the Russian people that he was back in control.
But President Putin has been very seriously weakened by this, and although his tough talk yesterday was an attempt to show the Russian people that he was back in control, there are lots of questions being asked in Russia, outside of Russia, in Ukraine, of course, where we're likely to see in the next 2 or 3 weeks the beginning of the major counter-offensive that we've been expecting for several weeks, which interestingly, President Putin said in his speech last night that he had got support from all public institutions in Russia, talking about things like the church and the
Today, the cabinet has
ministry.
decided to add South
But he
Korea
didn't
to the
actually
countries
have
under
the
the appendix
temerity, I
number 3
noticed, to
of
say
the
that
Export
he
Trade
got
Control
popular
Order.
public
We will publicly
support,
announce on the
because
30th,
it
and it
was
will be
very
effective
clear
from July
yesterday
21st.
that,
We will work to ensure
over
that the
the
revised system
weekend,
is properly
that Russians
implemented
did not
under the
come
follow-up
out in their
framework agreed
hundreds
with
of
South Korea.
thousands to protect President Putin against this coup attempt. There was some localized support for Prigozhin and Wagner's troops in Rostov, the first city that they took, which is an important command and control center for the war in Ukraine. And so President Putin is trying to make it look as though he has popular support, whereas for the moment, we don't really have any evidence suggesting that he does have that popular support, partly because he has imposed totalitarian structures on the media, and it's very difficult to get any accurate information about what Russians might actually think. I suspect they're feeling battered, apathetic, and they're frightened that this may lead to further violence inside Russia.
The feud between the Wagner Group leader and Russia's military brass that has festered throughout the special operation erupted into a mutiny that saw the mercenaries leave Ukraine to seize a military headquarters in a southern Russian city and roll seemingly unopposed for hundreds of miles toward Moscow, before turning around after less than 24 hours on Saturday. The Kremlin said it had made a deal for Prigozhin to move to Belarus and receive amnesty along with his soldiers. There was no confirmation of his whereabouts Monday, although a popular Russian news channel on a Telegram reported he was seen at a hotel in the Belarusian capital, Minsk.
Japan's trade minister said Tuesday that the country will reinstate South Korea as a preferred nation with fast-track trade status starting July 21st. It is virtually ending a 4-year economic row that was further strained during their bitter historic disputes.
Trade Minister Yasutoshi Nishimura told reporters that Japan and South Korea have also agreed to set up a framework to review and follow up on the systems as needed. Japan and South Korea have been rapidly mending their ties as they deepen three-way security cooperation with the United States in response to growing regional threats from North Korea and China. A reinstatement of South Korea's preferential status next month would end a 4-year trade dispute that began in July 2019 when Japan removed South Korea from its white list of countries given fast-track approvals in trade as ties deteriorated over compensation for Japanese wartime actions. Japan's tightening of trade controls against Seoul was an apparent retaliation for South Korean court rulings in 2018 that ordered Japanese companies to compensate Korean workers for abusive treatment and forced labor during World War II. When the Korean peninsula was under Japanese occupation, Japan also tightened export controls on key chemicals used by South Korean companies to make semiconductors and displays, prompting South Korea to file a complaint with the World Trade Organization and remove Japan from its own list of countries with preferred trade status.
Here's the weather forecast of all major cities. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.